Hey, I'm live, apparently. Apparently I'm live. That took longer than usual. But I am in fact here. And hi, Lugie. Yes, look, it is time for rubber chickens. I got a whole bunch of half a dozen, it's not that many, off the internet because I found a place selling them cheap. Because I'm sure you've seen the videos of one sounds like this, but a whole group of them sound like people screaming. And I haven't been able to get that effect yet. Yes, music over Independence Day in the US and the Battle of the Airports. I was going to make a video talking about how fucked and incoherent and what a loser Trump is, and it's like, who cares? Who cares? His supporters don't care. There's nothing about him. I mean, he's an outright fucking criminal, and one of his close associates who he's partied with is now on extremely serious child sex trafficking charges, and the chances of Trump not being implicated in that are close to zero. No one fucking cares. See? And hello, Mitchell and Miss Foxification. That was going to be if I made the video, that was going to be what I said. Like, yeah, I could go on about, this is stupid, his intelligence is something, blah, 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 blah. His supporters don't care. I don't think it's possible for anything to reach these people. They're just not connected to reality. Dirk, hi, you've got a night off. Hello. The fireworks go off for 3 days straight on 4th of July. Yeah, dogs do not like it. Often neither do war veterans. All those people who go, support the troops, thank you for your service, would regard it as the worst sort of imposition on them to cater for a veteran who had PTSD, and fireworks sound like combat noises to them and can trigger a PTSD episode. So it's like, honor the troops right up to the point they are in some way inconvenient to you. Yes, Miss Foxification. The talk about Epstein has been going on for a long time. It was weird because it was like, no doubt he was procuring underage girls for sex crimes. It's like everyone knew that. And a Trump associate got him off on a sweetheart deal when he was in court, and they're actually going like, yeah, he's guilty of this, but we're not going to punish him. And that person's now in Trump's cabinet. And it's just, what in the actual fuck? And some people are saying Bill Clinton may be implicated in the underage sex trafficking with this guy because Clinton has associated with him in the past. And it's like Trump supporters are saying that as if that will stop anyone going after Trump. Fuck Clinton. If he's implicated in that, throw him into the jail cell next to fucking Trump. The concept that it let Epstein and Trump off because Clinton was implicated is absolutely fucking ridiculous. So Ms. Foxification is alleged to have flown underage girls to very wealthy people. Yes, and yes, someone put together of basically known facts a possible chain of events, because this Epstein guy had a very weird looking investment fund, and there's a suggestion that that's how he laundered blackmail payments. Because if people just sent him blackmail payments, that'd be too easily traceable. But if he basically blackmailed very wealthy people, and the payoff was they invest in his hedge fund or whatever the investment thing was he had, and he gets a percentage of that, like people who handle investment uh, get, then that obscures the fact that he's getting massive, as in millions of dollars worth of blackmail payments from these people. And he also, as the rumors have it, just had a significant number of lawmakers and law enforcement people invited into these clandestine underage sex abuse sessions. And I was going to call them sex parties, not sex parties. If he's trafficking underage girls, it's sexual abuse. Yeah, what comes out of this might end up being really surreal. And you know what we're going to see? We're going to see these people who have trumpeted stuff like Pizzagate, the Democrats having a secret child sex dungeon under a pizza place that doesn't actually have a cellar, and QAnon conspiracies, which go so much further. People who are pushing those absolute weird things, and every 5 seconds they say something about the Clintons being child abusers and all this sort of thing. When this person linked to Trump actually is a child sex trafficker, expect a lot of silence. Not silence, denial, active denial from them. They're going to talk about this being another deep state thing, another leftist conspiracy to smear the wonderful Trump. It's just, there is no actual limit to their insanity. It's absolutely stunning to watch. Thing. Yes, Mitchell. Tommy Robinson, who's predictably been found guilty of contempt of court because he black and white was guilty. He's making these public appeals to Trump, saying give him political asylum in the States, and just the surreal nature of that does my head in. Someone who's campaigned nonstop against refugees, people that his government's foreign policy have plunged into war and destroyed their countries, and they're fleeing in terror. And he's called them the scum of the earth and saying they have to keep out. And just because he's having to face the repercussions for him, and he knowingly broke, this is the whole thing, because he'd done the same thing before, using a court case to promote his bigoted agenda. And he'd done the same thing, jeopardized the trial of some sex offenders. And he was charged and he was convicted, let off with a suspended sentence. And the judge said at that time, you do this again, you should expect to go to prison. And he did it again. And now he might not get a custodial sentence. He should. He deserves it. But he might not get a custodial sentence. We won't know that for a little while. But yeah, now he's saying that all the prisons are run by Muslim gangs and I'll be killed if I go to prison. It's like, no, that's not actually reality, sunshine. But if you're really worried, you could ask to be locked up in solitary for 24 hours a day, and then no one could get you. You don't need asylum in the US. You just need to be locked in solitary in maximum security the whole time you're there, and that'll be fine. And Safa, I'm glad that someone's looking after your sister. Oh, panic attacks are not good. They kind of run in my family. A couple of my siblings have had significant issues with anxiety. It is not good if you're in a not secure environment and you have an anxiety attack. It's pretty full-on stuff. So hopefully things are okay on your family front. But yes, I did name the live stream after Tommy Robinson asking for political asylum because he's so scared. He's just making up this bizarre shit about he's going to be killed in going prison. Oops, gosh, that was weird. I did that. I was just checking something. God, I still look at this. Is like my new laptop, and I think it's got a better webcam now. This white shirt's flaring it out, isn't it? I don't think there's any controls on. Or is there? Can I adjust my webcam? Webcam controller. Oh, there's a mysterious stranger. Okay, no webcam thing. Oh no, that's for my Logitech. Okay, I don't want that. What sort of laptop? It's an HP. Camera. Yes. Okay. Close other apps. Looks like another app's using the camera. Yes, it is. I'm just wondering how to adjust it. Stupid laptop. I don't know why I'm criticizing the laptop, but it is. Have I updated Windows 10 to the latest stuff? Probably. I don't know. I'd have to check. Hey, Justin, how are you? Mitchell, do I think there'll be riots if Tommy goes to prison? Oh, you mean in the streets? I thought you were going to say in prison. In prison, I don't think anyone will give a shit about him. I'll make a joke of him, probably. There'll probably be demonstrations because his supporters are fanatical lunatics driven by bigotry and ignorance. And their whole argument, see, when someone's entire argument is based on a fundamental lie, it's like, well, why should I waste any fucking time with you? It's like, it's for his views. He's being prosecuted for who he is, not what it. No, it's an incredibly straightforward breach of law. And it's the thing, he was told he'd done it before and been prosecuted and told if he did it again, he should expect to go to prison. And he did it again. And as the people say, it didn't matter anything. No, the defense lawyers for these sex offenders actually used Dick Face's actions as an attempt to get their clients off, saying, "Oh, they can't possibly get a fair trial now because of this promotion." So, and this is the other thing: this piece of shit absolutely knew this. He knew his actions were risking the trial of these horrible fucking sex offenders, and he knew his actions stood a reasonable chance of forcing a mistrial and maybe getting them off altogether, and he didn't care. In fact, it would have played into his narrative quite nicely if they had gotten off, because then he would just go on to this thing, oh, the courts let the Muslim sex offenders off and don't punish them, when it would have been his fault. That's the degree of fucking hypocrisy with him. He would have been extremely happy with these really quite awful sex offenders getting off, because that would have fed into his narrative. Like, he's absolute garbage, as are his supporters. Safa, do I get a tax cut? Well, here's the funny thing, because I'm a contractor and I contract through my own company. I'm going to benefit from reduction in corporate tax rates, company tax rates. And because I have a clever accountant who jiggles the numbers and whatnot, on paper, my personal income is comparatively low. And yeah, it's to avoid paying tax. It's all legal. I don't do anything illegal. I don't have any money in any tax havens. I just have one bank account, with an Australian bank, and everything's declared. It's just that if you are a company, you can do a whole bunch of things to reduce the amount of tax you pay. And that's what I do. So the personal income tax cuts won't have a huge flow on to me because my personal declared income is not that high. But yeah, I think they were doing cuts to company tax, and that will work in my favor. Oh, Kaji, your cat's not doing well. Oh, that's not good. Oh, your heat's making you sick. Yeah, if the cat's not used to it, they're not going to do very well in a heat wave. No. Yeah, misclassification. It's interesting. I watched an interesting videos. There's all these left wing YouTubers that I don't actually watch, and people keep telling me about them, and so I try and remember to watch them occasionally. And there's this one called Three Arrows, and I watched, and he was just, he's just showing how. The anti SJW crowd suck people in and feed them more and more extreme hard right ideology, and it's like, it's just a little bit more and then a little bit more, and you fall down this big hole of extreme right wing bigotry quite easily. And yeah, they're just convinced. Right, the weirdest thing, and I've seen a few variations of this, but the most obvious public one is people who say, anyone, oh, the people fighting against the fascists, they're the real fascists, which is mind-blowingly fucking absurd. And you just want to sit people down and say, what now? What the fuck are you doing? It's saying the act of resisting an ideology that at its core is about the extermination of people regarded as undesirable. That's an ideology that at its core is about the use of extreme force to achieve your ends. And for people, who either are the oppressed groups or people standing up for the oppressed groups against this, and saying they're as bad. It's like, just on the face of it, it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And all these people go, oh no, we're an Antifa, Black Bloc, they're worse, they're worse. It's like, they're only fucking getting involved with the fascists and their enablers, okay? It's absolutely absurd, this, they're the real fascists. And someone was linking me to a thing with, it was a school teacher, no, it was a school principal who got stood down because they were trying to encourage a neutral teaching of the Holocaust. That's how much this both sides fuckery that's how far it's gone. Now, when we're talking about the actual Nazis under Hitler in World War II exterminating millions of people, we need to look at that in a more neutral way. We have to look at both sides of why the Nazis exterminated millions of people. It's like, what in the actual fuck? What is a fascist? Well, literally, the fascist movement, I think, was started by Mussolini in Italy, um, and it has a specific meaning. Uh, in general terms, it means an authoritarian government that violently represses any opposition. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Oh, just something tickled my nose. And yeah, Mussolini started the move, came from the Italian word. It basically just meant something like the group. And in Mussolini's world, that is the state, the empire of Italy. But it's basically one party authoritarian rule, um, and yes, the violent repression of any opposition. Um, So this what's well, you're saying we need to remember history so we don't repeat it. A lot of people very much learn the wrong lessons um, uh, from fucking history. And I mean, I've heard the stories. The German police have uncovered these groups that are having motivational speeches from surviving Nazis and Hitler Youth types. They're all very old people now, but yes, preaching. Uh, they're going from pride in Germany to like, hey, you know what? Hitler was right, and we need to reignite the nationalism that led to the rise of the Nazi Party. I mean, another example of this. So, as an image sharing site called Imgur, and I put stuff on it sometimes. And one time, an image from this article that I thought was funny is this sweet little old lady. She has actually died since, but she's telling the story. She's Polish, and she's telling the story. She was a teenager in World War II when the Germans were occupying Poland, and she got hooked up with the resistance, and the um, they got her to lure German soldiers out into the woods. And the way she described it, with the promise of a kiss, like, yeah, that's why the German soldiers, because they wanted a kiss. That's why they followed you in the woods. And then the resistance fighters would kill the Germans. And I just thought it was funny. I titled it something like "You Never Know What Grandma Got Up To," because it's funny just seeing this sweet little old lady. And during the war, she lured Nazis to their death, occupying Nazis. And there were fuckheads in the comment saying like, "Oh, that's wrong. That wasn't in combat. If you just kill a soldier not in combat, that's murder." They're basically defending the Nazis, saying the Nazis were wrong. And this was in Poland. They were being occupied by the Nazis. The Nazis had already started their campaign of extermination. The Nazis had killed a horrific number of civilians in Poland. And these were resistance fighters taking action against an occupying army, the fucking Nazis. And these little cockheads are taking the Nazi side. And they convince themselves that they're being rational, fair, and even minded. And that's where you look at, like, oh, how did it happen? How did it happen? Because ordinary fucking people, A, let it happen, and B, became actively involved in what was happening. The idea that the Nazis running the extermination camps were a tiny minority in Germany and the general German populace didn't know what was happening and would have stopped it if they'd known. That's fucking horseshit. We've got so much evidence that, particularly the fucking cities that had extermination camps and concentration camps right nearby, people knew exactly what was happening. They knew the Jews were being rounded up, the Romanis were being rounded up, the gays were being rounded up. Anyone dissident was being rounded up and never being seen again. The general populace knew exactly what was happening and just either A, turned a blind eye to it, or B, were active supporters of it. Um, oh my God. And this both siding bullshit, and these fuckwits will take it right up to the actual Nazis under Hitler and say, well, you've got to see it from their side. It's like, what the fuck? Kaiju, the Nazis did an American thing and they separated their children from the parents. Yes, in the work camps, I think they killed the children because they decided the children were useless for the slave labor. They were working the adults to death, and uh, I think they thought the children were of no use to that, and they separated the parents and children, and the majority of children were just killed outright. And that's if it wasn't one of the actual, there were the concentration camps where they worked people to death and occasionally did the mass exterminations. But then there were just the extermination camps like Treblinka, where horrifically, just on an industrial scale, they were shipping um, whole trainloads of people into these camps, and there was just a production line for exterminating them. Absolutely horrific that people can do shit like that. But people can do shit like that. I mean, the atrocities that happened under the Soviet Union. Um, is it you look all around the world, whether it's Pol Pot, the Chinese communists, every authoritarian structure has no problems whatsoever um, with wholesale extermination or just killing people through deprivation. It's absolutely thing. Oh, that's a creepy thought, Kaiju. I mean, some of them adopted little children, treating them like little pets. Ugh. Yes, misfoxication. Some children survive camps. It depends what's in the camps. I mean, of course, you're now at the stage because of the amount of time that's passed. Virtually, the only survivors of the camps, they were at most young adults. Most of them are like teenagers. Most of the adult survivors of the camps have died of old age or complication disease, whatever. Since then, most of the survivors still around today were very young when they were in the camps because the conditions were so brutal that even the people who survived, most of them had dramatically shortened lives. It's yeah, no, it's absolutely horrific. I feel like I want to steer things to a more cheerful topic. But the world being what it is, it's very hard to not think about things like this. Hey, why don't we talk about like climate change and how we're all going to die because it's out of control? So I'm just making one of the chickens eat the other chicken. I don't know why, but maybe because they're so weird and freaky, they're making me think of Stranger Things and the weird creatures in Stranger Things. Yes, no spoilers, by the way. I've seen people who probably convinced themselves they're not doing spoilers, but giving away massive plot points and really fucking shits me. Like even saying something sad, that's telling people that something sad happens. But yes, so no spoilers. I'm only about 6 episodes in. Like it's been out less than a week. Be fucking fair. It's like I don't even know how many episodes it is, but it's, you know, something like 10 hours of stuff to watch, and not everyone has the time to fucking binge it. So be a bit reasonable. Mitchell, do I think we're the problem of this world? Humans are the direct cause of mass extinction at the moment. And it is looking like humans are stupidly going to include themselves in that mass extinction. So, yeah, I'd say humans are a pretty big problem, really. Um, So all about Murray Darling Water Authority. I don't know that whole thing. That's a weird and complicated story for anyone who's not familiar with it. There's a major river system in Australia that's supposed to be managed by the government. There's a private enterprise, and it looks like the problem is not only mismanagement. That would be bad enough if there was just mismanagement, but there's now increasing evidence that some key government figures are involved in incredibly fucking shifty deals. And I'm not naming names because they're probably really litigious, but there's a lot of talk in the media about which quite senior members of the coalition uh, stink a bit of dodgy dealings with lots of money with the Murray-Darling Water Authority. P.S. Slugi, having been incarcerated in the US. Oh, yeah, of course. The US in particular has a very brutal incarceration system. But yes, incarceration generally around the world tends to be fairly soul crushing. There's not much sympathy for those who find themselves incarcerated. And there probably isn't a country in the world where the criminal justice system isn't fucked up, isn't wrong, isn't biased, uh, lets the wrong people off and punishes others disproportionately. And people get fixated on this idea that criminals are bad. We must punish, 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 hurt, hurt, hurt. Don't even treat them as human. Forget the idea of rehabilitation, just punish. But glossing over the fact they're going to get out at some point. And if you've absolutely brutalized people during their term of incarceration, I don't see how you can expect them to be a better person when they get out. And then again, particularly in the US, the stories you hear about the probation system and the corruption in it are absolutely mind blowing. It's just, as soon as that sort of shit's done for profit, um, you start getting into big trouble. Yes, misfoxication. Solitary is indeed torture. Um, they learned in Australia, like there was this idea sort of in the 70s, 80s of, and these systems do exist in uh, um, America. I know the idea of a supermax prison, a very high tech, very clinical, constant surveillance, featureless, keep the prisoners in total lockdown circumstance. I'm trying to remember what the name of the facility was in Australia, the Supermax facility. And they were so proud of it. They thought this is where we're going to keep the worst people and it'll stop them from causing problems. And people were being kept in solitary in these featureless worlds under constant threat. And it made them insane. It literally gave people psychotic breaks and really fucked everything else. Frost Kai, I'm doing well, keeping relatively warm. We've had some cold mornings here, but some of the afternoons have been quite nice. Mitchell, do we know SpaceX and leave it? No, that's not a practical solution, and we have an enormous number of practical solutions to the worst of our problems, none of which are being pursued because of vested interests. So the idea of a miracle solution for catastrophic climate change is fucking bullshit. We've got simple, practical solutions. We literally know exactly what to do and have known for decades exactly what to do, and we've known exactly what the repercussions would be of not doing it, and we've done the opposite. We have progressively made the situation worse. Since knowing how bad the scenario is, we not only haven't taken the appropriate action, we've made everything worse, and now we're getting increasing evidence, not yet conclusive, but increasing evidence that all the worst effects of climate change are accelerating and happening far quicker and far more severely than predicted. So, hurrah. So far, humans arrogant. Humans are supremely arrogant, horrifyingly arrogant. Musical behavior. Humanity, evolution sense to Tommy Robinson. It's kind of fascinating. Like, if you've ever talked to an evolutionary biologist, someone who's really hardcore into the science of evolution and biology, and when they look at the behavior of everything, plants, insects, animals, microbes, they always look at it as what evolutionary advantage does that trait offer? Because that's where they see the evidence that backs up theory of evolution. They go, well, all these things, these particular mutations have survived and thrived because they offered a comparative benefit, and over a long enough timeline, a tiny benefit builds up, and one trait dominates, and another trait dies out. The other trait might not be negative as such, but it doesn't offer as much benefit as the other trait, and so it just gets bred out. So yeah, so are humans more arrogant than chimpanzees? I am not aware that anyone's ever called chimpanzees arrogant. Dr. Obama, hey, how you doing? I tell you what, you can say about chimpanzees, they have the capacity to be as violent as humans. They're actually quite dangerous, and in fact, on a lot of levels, they're more dangerous than gorillas. I mean, gorillas look scarier and are bigger, but chimpanzees have more violent tendencies. I remember I saw, one of those nature docos. I don't know if it was a David Attenborough one or what, but someone had studied these colonies of chimps in the wild, and they do basically fight for dominance. They go to war. Different colonies of chimps go to war, and they kill each other, and one ends up dominant. And they said they had observed after a fight, and one side won and drove off the other side. The adults of the other side fled, but the babies of the defeated side weren't strong and fast enough to flee, and the adults fled without them. And the victorious side ate the babies of the side they beat. And the scientists are saying, we don't really know why they did that because they didn't need to and whatnot. Okay, don't know. It seems kind of obvious to me why they did that. That's terror tactics. That's a big fuck you. We're not only going to fucking drive you out of this territory and have all the territory for ourselves, we're going to eat your fucking babies. I mean, that's a terror tactic. As it says, chimps are super fucking violent. Lukey, I'm sure someone has taught chimps how to fire guns, um, and give them enough time to practice, and they would probably get quite dangerous with a gun. I think I've seen evidence. Chimps probably have the intelligence to load a gun. If you teach them, I think they probably have the capacity to learn not just to shoot a gun, but to load a gun, to understand the principle. You go boom, 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 and when it stops doing that, you put more of these things in there, and I do it again. I have pretty much no doubt that a chimp could be trained to be quite dangerous with a gun. Kaiju chimps are the chihuahuas of apedom. Chihuahuas are scary as fuck. Apparently, I've seen pictures and video of this in areas. I think it was in LA. I think it was in the suburbs of LA, um, or it might have been further down towards the border, like San Diego. So, but in the suburbs, there's like packs of chihuahuas. Like they had been domestic and they'd run off and they got a bit feral, and they end up forming packs, and they're really fucking dangerous. They're only this big, but they're incredibly fucking aggressive, and they attack in packs of 12 or more. And it's just like there are neighborhoods where you have to be careful of these roaming fucking psycho chihuahuas. And it's like, they're such aggressive little bastards. Justin, could chimps evolve into a second human-like species? I don't know what the scientific view on stuff like that is. I know the basics are like there's a big fallacy that a lot of anti-evolution idiots say. They say that we evolved from apes, and if we evolved from apes, why would apes still be there? And it's like, well, no, we didn't evolve from apes. We are different evolutionary products of a common ancestor. There's different evolutionary paths were followed. So if chimps or bonobos or gorillas or the other higher primates uh, didn't have humans interfering, could they continue to evolve over the next, millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years? I don't know that there's a reason they couldn't. Um, Again, an evolutionary scientist might say how likely or unlikely that is, and they'd have good reasons and good evidence to back that up. I honestly don't know. I don't know that there's any conclusive reason that they wouldn't. But then again, I'm a very long way from an expert. Hey, Mr. Gonzo, how you doing? Yes, that's divergent evolution, as far as I'm concerned. Evolved from my brother. Why would my brother still exist? It is. Look, it is a mystery, and this is one of those things. The world is so amazing, and the 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 variety of things that exist and how amazing they all are. I'm honestly not surprised that people look at some of the far out things that exist in the world, not least us humans, and say that couldn't possibly be by accident. A higher power made that. I understand why people would say that. I think it's stupid to reject science that goes at least some way to explaining how the incredible diversity on this planet evolved. But yeah, people who just look at something and go, "No, it was God. I refuse. Anything else is heresy." That's just fucking ridiculous. But to be a little bit generous, I could understand why people look at things and go, that can't possibly be evolution, just, the chance mutation over, millions of years. That's not possible. It's just it's beyond your understanding. I get it, but just because something's beyond your understanding doesn't mean it's not real. We're asking about clones now. Would you classify a clone of yourself as your sibling or your child? The way cloning works is basically the way in vitro fertilization works. And in fact, I did see a doco on in vitro fertilization, and they were talking about cloning. They're saying basically there's a very strong chance with all the babies that have been born through in vitro fertilization, because of the process used, there is definitely a decent chance that some of them are actually clones. Like a sperm wasn't combined with an egg to start the cellular division. It was when they were actually scraping out that, they started the division just with the egg, which would make the baby a clone, not a product of the mother and father. Again, don't quote me on the science of how that happened, because it's pretty fucking mysterious. But I mean, seriously, it involves them with microscopes scraping out the nucleus of a cell and putting another. It's absolutely mind blowing what they do with in vitro fertilization these days. But yeah, I saw this one thing that basically said the techniques that have been used to clone animals, which we know works, are incredibly close to the techniques used in vitro fertilization. And basically, the chances are some test tube babies are actually clones rather than being a product of two parents. So just because the clones are born as babies, call them a child. It's just it's a child of one person rather than a child of two people. And again, clone doesn't mean you. Just because something was a clone of you doesn't mean they'll grow up looking literally identical to you, because there are a whole bunch of other factors that influence what someone looks like. So does it still need an egg? As I understand it, the in vitro fertilization and cloning needs an egg. It just doesn't necessarily need a sperm. Or, yeah, again, it's pointless asking me, because I'm going to half-ass an answer from something I've seen on a documentary, and I haven't made a study of it. But yes, as I understand it, with normal reproduction, sperm goes into an egg, they bond, and the cellular, sucking starts. The cloning process somehow starts that cellular process without a sperm fertilizing an egg. So there's only one set of genetic material that makes the new life. Justin, would I raise my own clone? Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, I've already got kids. I don't need any more. Mr. Gonzo, you just finished with these lame-ass drug. Oh, right. You had to go to drug education to show that you're sorry. Is that right? Sartha, how did they clone Jango Fett with the Force? Please don't look at anything in Star Wars and go, what's the science behind that? Because they just make shit up, because they think it's cool. And often it is. But yes. Koju, who are you saying? What famous actor would I like to play Aidsy in a would-be dramedy? That's a good question. They play him coming up. Oh, what's his name? A guy just popped into my head, and I'm blanking on his name. He does heaps of comedy. Jonah, that's him, Jonah Hill. I would say Jonah Hill should play Aidsy, actually. Miss Foxification, Charlie Sheen is too old to play Aidsy now, but a younger Charlie Sheen in his Wild and Reckless thing could do a very good approximation of Aidsy's very reckless behaviour. What's he's clear about his planet Venus rotating backwards or upside down? Something to. I don't know anything about Venus's rotation, actually. Mr. Gonzo, you think Stephen Fry? Again, Stephen Fry is too old to play Aidsy. Maybe young Stephen Fry. I'm talking about someone with the age they are now. I could see Jonah Hill playing. I'm trying to get Mimsy to come up and say hello. No, all the way up. Come all the way up. I'm not going to pat you till you come all the way up, because you just demand things. Look, I'm going to adjust the camera a bit. No, if you come up here, I'll pat you. And stop rubbing your face on things. I saw this thing advertised again. A cat self-scratching thing. It's this little rubber finger thing. You attach it to a door frame, and the cats just rub themselves on it. Apparently, they put catnip or something in it to attract the cats to it. Neither of my cats are into catnip because we tried that, so that would work. But if they worked out they could scratch themselves on it, they'd probably be into it. So who would play me in a movie? Oh, young Brad Pitt? I don't know. Kaiju, there's a YouTuber called Angry Joe who looks like a young man. I don't know who that is. Oh, okay, Joe Vargas. Suits me. Okay. No. Justin, we don't know what's going on with Venus. May have held life. My understanding was Venus has sort of got a very sulfurous atmosphere. Again, this is one of those things of like very half-assed um, uh, watching of science documentaries on the planets. My impression of Venus is a very toxic atmosphere. Gonzo, yes, I just saw a picture of the guy, so I see what you're saying about at least mild resemblance. I mean, Mars looks more like it may once have held life than Venus, because Mars is a planet very much like Earth, even though it doesn't have an atmosphere now. Whereas, in my understanding, Venus has an atmosphere and it's very acidic. Who knows? Who knows? The universe is very mysterious, very, very mysterious. Things change over time. I I read this series of books. Was the last books Terry Pratchett was working on. He co-wrote them with someone. The science fiction. Terry Pratchett's famous for writing the Discworld novels, the fantasy comedy books. These ones are science fiction, and it's called the Long Earth series. The first one's called The Long Earth, and it's basically um, people discover the ability to move between dimensions, alternate Earths. And there's a machine that lets you do it. You can jump to the next Earth. And our Earth is the only one that has humans on it. All the other Earths there's been divergent evolution. There are different creatures. And when it goes on long enough, People advance the machines that travel between the universe, so they literally travel across millions of Earths. They do find other intelligent life forms, not as advanced as humans, but more advanced than, say, chimpanzees. Like they have a language and they can learn to communicate with humans, and they, have various animal traits. But yeah, the people explore all these alternate Earths, and it's like new pioneers. They just go out, and there are scientific expeditions that jump millions of these worlds. And one of the things, because it's like they're coming across every possibility, and one time when they're going along, they suddenly drop into nothingness, um, because in one of the dimensions, Earth was destroyed by a comet. So yeah, they're sort of going skipping, and they skip into nothingness, and they almost die. But they skip to the next one, and there's a planet again. And so yes, when you're dealing with all the many possibilities the universe offers, anything can happen. Dr. Obama, who would I like to make a biopic about? Ooh, so many choices, so many choices. I'd like to make one about Burke and Wills and make fun of how fucking stupid they were. Because they're always held up as, oh, brave pioneers. Oh, it's so sad they died. They died because they were fucking idiots. Um, uh, and they were racist. Like if they had help from Indigenous Australians, they wouldn't have died, but they were too good to ask any Indigenous people for help. And so they fucking died, and they were idiots. But someone who's not an idiot, um, poor, uh, I tell you, I'm amazed they haven't made one of. Like, there's been a lot of comedians uh, that have had uh, things made of them. Bill Hicks, who was big and then died young from cancer, he was big in the early '90s, very sort of radical, in your face comedian, and he died. I'm kind of amazed there hasn't been a biopic of him. Uh, Speaking of war, that from the area where I live, World War One war hero Albert Jacka won the Victoria Cross. He'd be an interesting one. Um, and who's George Carlin? I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been a George Carlin biopic. Speaking of comedians, actually. I'm saying, Justin, was there an Obama biopic? I did not see that. I wasn't aware of an Obama biopic. Um, the fact that I haven't heard of it, that makes me think it's maybe not a top shelf effort. PBR, Russell Crowe was supposed to do a Bill Hicks bio at one point. Yeah, Russell Crowe would probably enjoy it, but he's too old now. I mean, how old was Bill Hicks when he died? I'll just look it up. Bill Hicks, how old was he when he died? He was only 33. He was only 33 when he died. And Rusty's way into his 50s now. So the time has passed for Rusty to do it. You want a comedian in their 30s, maybe 40s to do it. Um, uh, but I want Rusty to do a friggin' sequel to The Nice Guys, the film that he did with what's his name, Pretty Boy. I love that movie. That was a very, very underrated movie. If you haven't seen it, um, uh, a movie called The Nice Guys that has Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling in it. It's set in the 70s, and fuck, it's funny. I really like that movie. I think it's really underrated. It wasn't hugely successful. It was set up for a sequel, but then I don't think one's ever getting made because the film itself wasn't that successful, which is a bit sad because I really liked it. I thought it was very good. Must have Pure Vengeance. You want a Gladiator sequel? His Adventures in the Afterlife, maybe? Safa, what year did The Nice Guys come out in? It was about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. It's relatively recent, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. Oh my God, Justin, the guy who plays Obama in the Obama biopics actually an Aussie. Again, I have very strong suspicions this is not a top shelf product. I don't know. Okay, Mimsy's decided to come up and say hello properly after messing about and getting into trouble. Now you're just going to come up and say hello to everyone. I'm gonna look it up, Justin. The Obama biopic. Barry. Okay. That was a Netflix show, was it? Okay, it was called. It was a Netflix show called Barry. Okay. It's about his life at university. Okay. The fact that I never hear people talk about it makes me think that it's not great. This Foxification, you want Total Recall made properly, being close to the actual story. Okay, who wrote Total Recall? And was it called Total Recall? Because it was one of the classic writers, if I remember rightly. Yes, Philip K. Dick. I knew it was one of the weird ones. It was one of the weird sci-fi writers. Yeah, Philip K. Dick has done some weird shit. Trying to think. Yeah, two of the weirder sci-fi writers, Philip K. Dick and Harlan Ellison. They do some very weird stuff. So if you're saying Michelle Obama had a go at Trump, look, everyone should have a go at Trump. The guy's a fucking train wreck. Ah, that's right. I knew it had a different name and it was a cool name. This Foxification, the book was called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. And that was made into the movie Total Recall and the really shitty remake Total Recall. It's like the shitty RoboCop. And it's funny, I saw because I love RoboCop, the original movie, and RoboCop 2 was good, and RoboCop 3 was a pile of shit that was just made to sell toys. And the remake was fairly shit at its moments, but it was fairly shit. And the original Total Recall has some camp value in it. And again, the remake was shit. It had some good stuff, but was shit. And uh, the the dude who made those movies, um, who was the director? Paul Verhoeven. I knew he had the same name. So Paul Verhoeven made a few of these action films, and I remember seeing in a movie, an interview, people basically asked Paul Verhoeven, why do you think the remakes of your movies tanked? And he said, well, basically because they took themselves too seriously. We were making them like we wanted to make good movies, but we were aware that the concepts were really quite silly. And so we never took ourselves too seriously. There's a difference between not taking yourself seriously and doing good work. And yeah, they wanted to make good movies, and I think they made good movies. But yeah, then the remakes sort of dropped the social satire element and took themselves way too seriously. And I think he hit the nail on the head when he said that's why they fell over, because they took themselves too seriously. Luke, one of my plans for the heat death of the universe. Oh my god, you're just making me think of the Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guidebooks, the restaurant at the end of the universe. People time travel to this restaurant that's right at the edge of the heat death of the universe, and you can watch the universe collapse, and you time travel back to your safe time um, before it actually all collapses. Catherine, what was the movie called based on Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick? That's Blade Runner. See, Philip K. Dick gave books really good names, and then they simplified uh, the name for the movies, which is sensible. We can remember it for you wholesale doesn't really work as a movie title, but it's a great book title. And Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Good book title, not a great film title. Um, uh, but yes, Blade Runner's a good film, and even that recent very late sequel was a Blade Runner 2034, whatever it was, 24. I thought that was pretty good. That had some very interesting, had some very stupid stuff in it as well. Um, but there was some very good stuff in the Ryan Gosling Blade Runner. Um, and but yeah, but for those, maybe not everyone knows, when Blade Runner was originally made, the studio looked at it, and because it's very high concept and whatnot, and the studio looked at it and said, "This is too confusing. Nobody will know what's happening." Um, they decided it needed voiceover for explaining the plot. So like the old Philip Marlowe film noir detective things. And look, it kind of worked. A lot of people, because later versions were released without the voiceover, and it's a different experience watching Blade Runner without the voiceover. Particularly the end is very different without a voiceover. But I don't hate the voiceover. I don't hate the voiceover at all. Um, I do think it's ultimately better without it. But the first time I watched a version of Blade Runner without the voiceover, where you're just sitting there watching and the dialogue is like a bit different. And at about, I don't know if it's a quarter of the way, halfway through, I'm watching this with no voiceover, and I'm just going, "Holy fuck, Deckard's a replicant." And not only the voiceover in the original release of the movie basically makes it explicit that Deckard's not a replicant, um, but he is. He was intended to be a replicant. But yeah, but this is before the internet, right? This is before the internet, and I was just watching, and there were two lines that gave it away to me. One is when the skeezy police chief is telling Deckard he wants him to track the skin jobs, and he says, Deckard says, "Get someone else," and the cop just looked at him and goes, "There's no one else, Deck, not like you." And I was going, "Wait, what?" And then just the later line where Rachel says, when he's doing the Voight Kampf test on Rachel, and she just says to him, "Tell me, Mr. Deckard, have you ever done this test on yourself?" And he just gives her a look, and I'm like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And I just like, "Oh my god, he's a fucking replicant." And it turns out he was. So it really did me head in. Uh, Lou, you think we need to watch? Do you mean make the original Watchmen again, because there's a TV series that's a sequel, because there were a bunch of sequel comics that came out in the last couple of years. The trailer for the Watchmen TV series has got me interested, I'll admit. Could be good, could be terrible, could be good though. We'll see. So the 2019 movie's a bit meh. Oh, has anything this year really made me go, woo? Nothing's standing out in my head. I kind of feel like I might have missed some that were particularly good. Everyone's talking about this film Parasite, a Korean film called Parasite. And I feel like Jordan Peele's movie Us looks really good, but I haven't seen it yet. So that might be a good one. I don't know. This is a weird thing. I've seen a bunch of films this year. What, we halfway through the year? I've probably seen, I don't know, 10 films, as in new films in the cinema this year. And none of them are leaping out at me as like super duper. Look, I thought you want a good watch movie. I honestly look, okay, not that it was perfect, but I think it would be very hard to make a better Watchmen movie than the Snyder one. I think it would need to be a TV series. I think it'd need to be a prestige TV series to do the comic any more justice than the movie did. Because I think they did a pretty good job. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but bits of it were incredible. And like they left so much out. But that's a possibly controversial opinion on my part, that I think it would be hard to make a better Watchmen movie than the one that was made. God, you have heard a few people like Godzilla King of the Monsters. I'll watch it when it's on streaming. I'm not going to go and see Godzilla in the cinema. Oh gosh, Catherine, you bought the Marvel Cinematic Universe box sets. That'll keep you busy. So many of them I haven't watched in ages. I do remember being really impressed when Iron Man came out. I was like, holy fuck, an actual good comic movie. Like, I thought Iron Man was really good when it came out. Very good. Oh yeah, PBR, Jackie Earl Haley as Rorschach. He was absolutely fucking amazing. I mean, different actors did sort of differently well in the different roles. Some of them were very good, and some were. But yeah, no, Rorschach was just like, oh my fucking god, this dude's perfect. He was definitely. I agree. He was the high point of the film, because that's a difficult role. Uh, what are you doing? Just when I'm thinking about a sociopath, Mimsy's there pulling faces at me. But yes, that guy Jackie Earl Haley who played Rorschach was particularly good, and just the pivotal scenes that he does, like the fight in the mess hall in the prison when someone tries to jump him, and is horribly violent when he takes the guy out, and as he's being dragged out by the guards, he's like, "You got it all wrong. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me." It's just like, because he put so many of them. So how big must it be? It's not huge. I mean, they don't make small TVs anymore. But I got it a couple of years ago. How old's my TV? Because I had one and it just fucking stopped working. Blew up like a plasma screen. And it just one day was like, fuck it, I'm not working anymore. So fuck it, going out and getting another one, which was bigger than the other one. As not super huge. I don't even know how big it is. It's big. the old big flat screen, but not super big, like stupid big. And because I didn't spend that much on it. But yeah, it's big enough. It's fucking Jesus. The size of some of the TVs, and I love how they keep finding ways to keep TVs expensive. It's like, okay, the TV that cost $4,000 a year ago only costs $1,000 now, but well, we've come up with a new super duper splendiferous form of TV. So now there's another one that costs $4,000. They keep finding ways to have TVs be expensive. I think the ultimate will be, and I know this exists in prototype, but basically wallpaper as TVs, basically electronic wallpaper. So it can essentially be made to any size, and it's some wild technology that there is whatever between two bits of plastic film that gets excited by an electric current flow through it, and it can do a TV picture at like any size. And then you're into fucking what was it? Fahrenheit 451. Everyone remembers Fahrenheit 451's about burning books. But there's a bit in the book that often isn't played up in adaptations. The people, they don't have a TV set. It's like a TV room. The walls are the soap operas, the stories are wall-sized, and people are like in the middle of it. And that technology basically exists. It's not at consumer level now, but it will be. Just like fucking electric wallpaper, even when it's not TV. That's kind of fun. The idea that your walls could be anything and can change and be I think there will be some low res versions that'll be like animated GIFs. Wouldn't it be? I honestly think that would be fun. Animated GIFs for wallpaper. Um, that would be pretty funny. Ahmed, you want television inside the bathroom mirror? I feel like I've seen that somewhere. They call them smart mirrors. And you can actually, like, you can beam your phone to the mirror and superimpose things on it. Oh, Ahmed, it's at the Ritz-Carlton. Okay, you have actually seen one. Okay, I get it. Oh, Catherine, you end up with DVDs. You were actually thinking of a new TV, but nothing leapt out, so you just bought DVDs. Uh, Luki, you want an old school CRT so you have something to sit on when you move house. Oh my God, weren't they fucking huge? And when you got a big one, like an 80 centimeter, they were so fucking heavy. I knew some guys who had a specialist's, TV hi-fi store. They specialized in high-end stuff. They were the only people who had, like, they were early adopters. They were the only people who had like laserdisc players before laserdiscs got superseded by DVDs. But they had, I think it was basically the biggest CRT television that was made. Like the biggest normal consumer models were 80 centimeters, and they were huge and fucking heavy. Um, uh, and these ones were 95 centimeters, and the box they came in had these two sort of reinforced tubes in it. And they explained to me, thing is so heavy you can't carry it normally. You need two people, and you put these poles through these tubes in the box, and you carry it in. And he said, if you buy one of these, and they did sell a couple of them. He said, if someone buys one, we go out and visit their house before we take it in and install them and talk them through where it's going to be, because once it's there, he said, you're not going to move it, because it was insanely heavy. Like it weighed over 100 kilograms, I think. So you just didn't move it. Once you put it somewhere, you didn't move it. Oh god, yes, Miss Foxcation, the old rear projection TVs. They were huge, and it was such a shitty low res picture on them. But people were so excited because it was big. It was a big thing, and it was this huge, ridiculous contraption that did this rear projection, and shitty, low quality image, and you couldn't see it in certain light. Oh my god. We're talking about 4K movies. PBR, you reckon get old movies on 4K because they look so much better, but new movies look about the same. Eh. Oh, wow. This Foxcation playing a Master System Mega Drive on a rear projection TV. That does sound pretty awesome, actually. I think, well, I never had a rear projection TV. God, the most advanced game system I had when they were around, I suppose. Yeah, I had a Nintendo 64. A Nintendo 64 on one of those would have been pretty cool. But no, the biggest. Did I ever have an 80 centimeter? Or there was like a 68 centimeter one I know I had for a while. Might have eventually got an 80 centimeter one. Don't remember. But yeah, I um I think with the new TVs, you've got to be careful. Like that interpolation thing they do, uh, that is apparently good for sports on TV. Give you lots of sharp, crystal clear image, but it's really shitty for movies. It makes movies look like soap operas. It makes it look like they were shot on video. It's like ridiculous. Oh no, I finished my juice. Big question is, do I want to make a cocktail? I don't know. Oh, RC, you watched the Dam Busters on 4K. Well, see, that's the thing. It might be a black and white film from the 50s, but if they had like an original print, that would um, that would be at high resolution. I mean, Dam Busters might have even been in 70 millimeter. I don't know. Um, yes, it's not that old movies were shot on low grade stock. It's just we were used to seeing them on broadcast TV or on like videotape, and that's shitty quality. But the actual films were quite good quality. Um, but yeah, there's this thing with the TVs that there's some version of, they call it interpolation, and it makes the picture too sharp edged. And like I saw one of the Avengers movies in JB playing on this really big screen, and oh fuck, it looked terrible. And I'm like saying to people, why are you playing it? Like, can't you see how fucking bad that looks? And even people who aren't really into the technology, they can kind of look at it and think it's not quite right, and they can't work out why. Because it's too sharp edged and too contrasty, and it looks like it was shot on video with really flat lights, like a TV soap opera. Um, it's just fucking terrible. You got to switch that function off if you get a TV that has that on, or a disc player that has that on it. It's terrible. Yes, Ahmed, the HD technology making prestige television look like 90s cable. Yeah, you've got to switch it off. Yeah, it's a good point, PBR. It's like films shot on a good stock 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter tend to look better on 4K than something shot on digital. Yes. I see. That's a good point. Is your local JB crazy stuff everywhere? They occasionally rearrange. I think the idea I think they used to make more sense and now they make less. And I think the idea is like the Gruen transfer in shopping malls, the idea that you're so overwhelmed by everything that's around you that your higher cognitive functions shut off and you're more susceptible to suggestive selling and you're more likely to buy something. I seriously think that's what JB's doing by making their setup really confusing. I think they're just basically trying to shut down your cognitive functions so you're more likely to buy stuff. Ahmed, you think you should watch a movie on VR while on mushrooms? That actually sounds a little bit unpleasant. We did have a conversation in a different live stream about movies I've watched in the cinema on hallucinogens, but no, on VR, I'd be very concerned about a bad experience, quite honestly. Ms. Foxification, I'm not surprised you're into the tech with TVs. Buy an expensive TV, use the wrong HDMI cable or a crappy DVD player. Yes, you have to have matching standards of technology. I agree. See, Catherine, it's not working on you. You get overwhelmed and don't do anything. I think JB and other shops, but I agree. Now that it's been brought up, uh, JB is confusing. It's just fucking shit everywhere. And I think it is to actually overwhelm you and, uh, yeah, mess you up. So I just had an idea of something to search for while we're talking about this. That's interesting. I just wondered if there was a theme cocktail for 4K. And when you look up 4K cocktails, it's all ads for stock footage of cocktails and cocktails being made, which is interesting. Where is this place? Wow, I've randomly found a bar in Romania called the Noir Cocktail Bar. All right, I'm really into this. Wonder if they've got any good cocktail recipes here. Have a Romanian cocktail. That's all stuff about their live gigs. And unsurprisingly, the entries aren't in English. So I don't know what they're talking about anyway. Oh well, there we go. Cecilia, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a live stream for ages. And oh, hey, Environmental Coffee House, good to see you as well. I mean, that's not a cocktail. Popsicles blended with Smirnoff. That's just a smoothie. You're not seeing. We've got a lot of things at my disposal here. I did like the one I made on the weekend. I was talking with a friend, Brian, who is often in the live chat, the username Mofo Sign, and he's going to be having some podcasty talks with me about a few topics. But we got on the idea of 4 seasons as a name for things, and it came up with a 4 seasons cocktail, which is like 4 spirits to represent each of the 4 seasons, and an additional flavor for each of the 4 seasons as well. And I was quite happy with how it turned out. Oh, Sandy, hello at Environmental Coffee House. And I'm shocking with names, Sandy. So I always forget. I could never really work in a PR. Have you ever seen those people who can like schmooze a whole room and get all the names and remember them all. That is not me. So I couldn't work in PR because, it's a core thing with PR people. They have to remember names and schmooze, and I'm fucking terrible with names. And as a contractor, um, that can be difficult because I go to new workplaces all the time, and it takes me ages to learn people's names. And because when I'm new, people only have to learn one name. Mine, I have to learn like dozens of names, and I have to use someone's name friggin' half a dozen times at least before I remember them. So it gets really embarrassing when someone remembers my name and I don't remember theirs. So environment copyhouse, you have outlets all over the states. One of your Facebook followers wants you to bring someone from down under. That sounds interesting. But yes. Um, Sorry, I got sidetracked. I was talking about my Four Seasons. See, and this was a fun challenge. I like challenge. It's like in the live stream the other time where we did Angry's Big Mistake, where I just put all uh, my highest alcohol spirits into one cocktail, and I was surprised how good that was. And the Four Seasons was a complete uh, um, experiment, and I was impressed with how well it worked. Oh, I see what you're saying, Sandy. Someone thinks you're not covering. You have environmental discussions, and someone said they think you don't cover Southern Hemisphere weather and climate change. Yeah, but you've also got to go with what you know. I understand what someone's saying, but you've kind of got to go with what you know. So look, you got four horsemen: Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, Johnny Walker, and Jose. So that's bourbon, scotch, and tequila? Oh gosh, Catherine, you had to schmooze all last week and had shows at Festival Centre. That's a bit overwhelming. Ooh, see, that's an interesting one. It's just talking about coffee ice cubes because we were talking about fruit ice cubes the other week. Like I've done stuff with blood orange juice frozen as ice cubes. Baileys with coffee. See, I don't like coffee, so that's the one I'm not going to do. Um, but I'd probably go ice cubes made of fruit juice with some spirits. I think this Fox Cash said there was a downed Russian sub. I didn't hear about a downed Russian sub. When did a Russian sub get downed? That sounds thoroughly disturbing. Um, Let me see if I do a new search for downed Russian sub. Is that an old story? It's just there's nothing in the news about it. I know it was last week. Okay, God, how did I miss that? Okay. Uh, I know there are a few stories from the Cold War where we were all basically saved by the actions of an individual who refused to launch. And there's one guy whose name gets put around a bit in Russia, but I've seen a doco, and according to some sources, at least twice in Russia and once in the US, there was someone who had the authority to launch nuclear weapons. And from what their system was telling them, they should have launched. They should have followed the rules and they should have launched. But they were looking at the information they were getting and going, that doesn't fucking look right. And everything was saying launch, the enemy has launched, you must launch. But they just looked at the data and went, no, that's not right. And they didn't. And the data they were getting was wrong. And they saved us all from nuclear holocaust because if they had launched, then it would have been all over. And Apparently, that happened at least twice in Russia and at least once in the US. That people with a launch key were looking at information that was telling them the enemy had launched, and they went, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And they were looking at this data and it was saying, no, there's definitely a launch. And they're going, no, that doesn't look right. And they didn't launch and they saved us all. Oh my God. And some people go, oh, isn't that good? And go, no, it's actually horrific. I hate hearing stories that we have these systems of destruction in place that, according to the rules of said systems, should have launched and killed us all, and they didn't. Yes, Crimson Tide kind of dramatized that. But yeah, so does Trump have a launch key himself? I think technically, yes, but there's almost no doubt if he started moving towards a launch, he's surrounded by people who would slap the launch key out of his hand, which is hilarious because we keep getting these stories that Trump has told his staff to do ridiculous, awful things, and they've just gone, oh, fuck no. And there's never been repercussions for them refusing his direct orders. And it's just like, and you hear some of the stories and you go, well, thank fuck they're ignoring him and not doing it. But hilariously, like, that's illegal. It's unconstitutional. If he gives them an order, they're meant to follow the order, even if they think the order is dumb as fuck. But there are repeated stories have come out of his White House that he has given terrible, terrible instructions, and people just haven't carried them out. And time's passed, and it's no. Oh, Miss Foxification, you're worried that no one's stopping him taking action against Iran. Trouble is, he's surrounded by fucking lunatics who have been aggressively pushing for action against Iran for over a decade. And it's absolutely terrifying that these people think that's just a thing they can do. This has been pushed for a very long time that Iran's bad, we should bomb them. And it's like, that's a war crime and counterproductive and awful. I mean, it's like, with the people involved, I know they don't care about the death of Iranians. Like, you point out to people that Bush's Iraq invasion, which was on absolutely false pretenses, cost the lives of in excess of 1 million Iraqis. And for the cheerleaders for that, so first they reject the death toll anyway, but second, they just don't fucking care. They don't care about the death toll in Iran from a strike there, but they're incapable of thinking through what it would cost in terms of money and American lives because of the retaliation. They launch a strike on Iran, they've just radicalized another couple thousand jihadis around the world, and America's going to pay the price, and the rest of the world's going to pay the price for that. Oh, the bomb Iran thing, musical elevator, that was John McCain. Oh, yes, Kaiju, you know it. Yes, McCain, the war criminal. Yes, he at a Republican convention made the joke about singing Bomb Iran to Barbara Ann. But yeah, this shit for launch an attack on Iran just because is what was that, Mimsy? You made a noise like me. Oh my god, what are you? She's just getting into stuff. Honestly, she's so much trouble. Yes, Justin, you're true that Saddam was a very close ally of the US, and yes, the US sold him weapons, and That was the joke about, it's not just the US, it was England and other European powers as well. That there's a, a joke that went around when people were justifying uh, the Iraq invasion with false information. Um, but it was things like Tony Blair saying, "Oh no, Iraq definitely has weapons of mass destruction." And someone says, "How do you know?" And goes, "Oh, we kept the receipts." It's like, because this country. Sorry, I'm going to go off for a moment because I think Mimsy's up to no good. I don't want to stop her. What are you doing? What are you doing? Come out. Did you do what I think you did? Oh, it's up to no good. Oh, she was just getting into a cupboard. I think she's just going to pee in the cupboard. Yeah. Yes, the Taliban was based in Afghanistan, may well have gotten support from Iran. Oh, yes, the US very actively helped Osama bin Laden because the baddie at the time was Russia, the USSR. And at the time, Russia was occupying Afghanistan and the Taliban were the good guys. There's a bit of a hoot. There's a movie with Tom Hanks in it. I think it's called Charlie Wilson's War. Now, the guy who convinced the US to fund Osama bin Laden and the Taliban to fight the Russians, which just comes and blows up in their face at a later date. It's like this strategy of funding people just because they're anti-communist, without actually looking at, are they a good person, is fucking ridiculous. And America fell down this hole so many times in the Cold War. And these days, they make the mistake of doing policies to support someone just because they're anti-Muslim. Tell you what, I am just quickly going to let Mimsy out of the room because she's been weird. You can go out. I'm going to open the door. You can go out. Yes, yes, yes. Go out. She's being weird. I just want to let her get out. Ah. Mate, you reckon cats hate the scent of citrus, so if they pee somewhere, spray it with orange or lemon oil. Ooh, that's okay. Yes, Celia. Mimsy's in fuck your shit up mode. I don't know. She's in a weird mood, and I thought she was going to cause trouble. So if I just let her out, she'll go off and do whatever she wants. We've got yeah. There's a thing we use as household deodorant. Uh, the same maker, they make some, and it's like it's pump sprays, not aerosol. Um, and they make it with citrus oils. The original one was called Orange Power. It's made with orange oil, but they also have lemon and lime. So they smell very nice, and the base ingredient is the orange oil or lemon oil or lime oil. So yeah, I'll look into that. My cat's pee somewhere, see if that gets in. So for just the Twin Tower plane, most of the terrorists on September 11th came from Saudi Arabia. Some came from Pakistan. I don't think any were Iraqi. Certainly, the Saddam Hussein's regime had nothing to do with the attacks. The fucking Saudis had everything to do with it. So, the Wahhabi extremists who are based in and funded by the Saudi royal family. Justin, you don't reckon they were from Pakistan? Why not invade Saudis? Because Saudis were very close friends with the Bushes. 9/11. Hi, I'm just going to look up nationalities. Okay. Okay, so the one who was regarded as being like the leader, Muhammad Atta, he's apparently Egyptian. And then there were Saudis and one from the United Arab Emirates and Saudis, and one from Lebanon and Saudis. So most of them were Saudis. And of course, Osama bin Laden is from one of the Saudi royal families. Oh, PBR, the bin Laden family are incredibly close to the Bush family. There were members of the bin Laden family in America at the time of the attacks, and yeah, the Bush regime spirited them out of the country before the shit seriously hit the fan, because they knew the shit would hit the fan, and they got them out of the country before people really knew where they were. So, why was Iraq invaded? Good question. No, look, the dominant theories. Okay, the most positive spin you can put on the invasion of Iraq, they were categorically nothing to do with the 9/11 attacks. They categorically did not have weapons of mass destruction. The US knew both of those facts before the invasion. The most positive spin, and I do not believe this to be the case, but the most positive spin you can rationally put on it is they went, hey, Saddam is aggressive and expansionist and volatile, and that destabilizes the whole area. And we rely on the oil and the money that comes from trading oil in that area. And he threatens that. We need to take him out because we believe if we overthrow him, the entire region will become more stable. And I don't believe that was their primary motivation. I believe their primary motivation was easier access to oil, and notably, apparently, Saddam had threatened, because most of the oil is traded in US dollars. So the US gets a cut of all the oil trades just because it's being traded in US dollars. And Saddam said he wasn't going to trade in US dollars anymore. He was going to do a deal with Russia to trade oil in rubles. And that would be very economically destabilizing to the US. And they were like, oh, fuck no, we're not letting that happen. And they used all the things about weapons of mass destruction and him being a bad person as excuses to advance their political goals. But they did apparently completely believe, they completely believed that their stupid fucking plan would work, that they would be greeted as liberators, that it would be easy, that it would be over in a couple of weeks. Just fucking morons. I think they actually genuinely believed that bullshit. The idea that America can invade a Middle Eastern country and be greeted as liberators is fucking ridiculous. Is really, really ridiculous. Celia, why the Saudis like Mohammed bin Salman untouchable? Yeah, oil. And there is a belief that the totalitarian behavior of the Saudis is keeping the Middle East relatively stable for US interests, and it'll all go pretty haywire if there wasn't this totalitarian force dominating the area. Again, I don't know that that's actually true, but that is an accepted way of thinking, that the Saudis, for all their evil fucking totalitarian bullshit, by dominating the oil producing areas of the Middle East, make it a more stable environment for US interests. And yes, Ms. Fox, yes, Saddam brutally kept opposition down, and the US was hunky-dory with that up until he threatened their economic interests. Oh God, suffer. What about Yemen? Yemen's a fucking disaster that the Saudis are the main perpetrators of. It's like a humanitarian disaster, looking at millions of people dying from starvation because of the fucking annexation of Yemen by the Saudis and supported by Western countries. RC, what about Bahrain? What specifically about Bahrain are you asking? Are they officially part of like the United Arab Emirates? I know they're there in the Gulf. Um, so yeah, I don't. Are they part of OPEC? Are Bahrain part of OPEC? I know they're in the right part of the world. I think Al Jazeera comes from Yemen. Yeah, I know. But sorry, I know Bahrain is its own country. It's there in the Gulf. Not sure if they're part of OPEC. I think. Yeah, oh God, yeah. I'm working off half knowledge on. Yeah, aren't they all OPEC? And I'm not sure who exactly. Here we go. Let's look up who is actually in OPEC. Um, the oil producing countries. The members. Oh, Jesus, Venezuela's in OPEC. That is really weird. I didn't know Venezuela was in OPEC. That is super weird that I didn't know that. OPEC members Algeria, Angola, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Nigeria, Congo, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Venezuela. It's all the Middle East and African countries. Don't surprise me. They're geographically, you know, co-located. But Venezuela, I did not know Venezuela was in OPEC, and Bahrain's not in there. Of the Gulf countries, who've we got? Libya, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq, Saudi, UAE, then African countries and Venezuela. Ah, there you go. I did not know Venezuela was in OPEC. I learned something tonight. Well, that's good. Justin, did I see? I did see the movie W. I don't remember the China aspect of it. The Iraq invasion had something to do with China. I want to see the one I haven't seen is the one where Christian Bale plays Dick Cheney. That must be coming onto streaming services soon. I want to see that. I didn't see that in the cinema. Vice, that's what it was called. Because that seemed to be taking the angle Bush was just a Goomba and Cheney was a psychopathic power mad freak who ran everything. I really want to see that. Oh my God, I hadn't heard that misclassification. China's trying to help Venezuela with their oil facilities. No, the US would not like that. They would not like that at all. They don't like Venezuela being helped, and they really don't like China doing anything. Oh, I see the Roger Ailes one, the loudest voice. That's Rusty. Rusty Crowe plays Roger Ailes, does he? That's a TV series, or is it a movie? TV movie. It's on one of the fucking subscription services. I understand. Not one I subscribe to, if I know. So okay, it's on Stan in Australia, and I don't get it. But there's too much. I mean, I keep thinking, oh, that's on that. No, I could subscribe to this. Yeah, but I don't have time. I don't have the time with what's on Foxtel and what's on uh, Netflix and me trying to keep up with YouTube. I don't have time to watch anymore. There's a whole bunch of stuff that on Amazon that I want to see, and I might subscribe to Amazon just to get a few key things I want to see. But there's too much good TV. I just can't watch it all. Just have to accept the fact can't watch it all. There's some stuff I just won't watch because there's too much. God. Mimsy's come back in. What are you doing now? You're going to hang around and be weird. You can go out if you want. The door's still open. She's so weird. She hates noise. You can't see, but I'll see if I can make it jump. Oop, yep, that got her attention. Actually, didn't make a jump. She was just interested in the rubber chickens. Well, Venezuela's South American. I think they had a government that, by American standards, qualified as socialist or communist. And they certainly expressed their independence to America, which we then had the same old America destabilizing an elected government that may or may not have had problems of its own that the US then exploited. I mean, I thought they were fucking sick of fucking around in South America, having done that all through the 70s and 80s. And then ended up fucking propping up murderous dictators just because they were anti-communist. It's like so ridiculous. Yes, RC, the limited old days where you just watched what the TV stations told you. Yeah, the Sunday night movie, that was a real thing. There's a real battle in Australia for people in other parts of the world who maybe have more, or in some places less TV stations. We had 3 commercial channels, and they would really compete with the Sunday night movie, because that's whichever of the 3 won, and it was normally like one was a big winner. That's what everyone would be talking about at work on Monday. Oh, did you see blah blah blah, the Sunday night movie? And that was for years, for decades. It was such a huge fight with these 3 commercial networks who would have the dominant Sunday night movie. And that's all in the past now. I don't know if they even do Sunday night movies now. They sort of broke up into regular programming. That became a thing. Now they're under so much siege from the different subscription services as well, and the internet generally. Oh God, I remember Star Wars. Well, it took forever to come out on video, and then it took forever again to come out on TV. Now, of course, stuff gets rushed to video, and streaming services, pay services, like, within a month or 2 of its cinema run, it's a home video. Whereas not that long ago, it took a year or even 2 after a cinema run for something to be released for the home market. Um, and fucking years before it would be on TV. But yeah, now they rush it to the digital formats, and yeah, a little while after it ends up on free-to-air TV. Yeah. This Fox question was Friday night one movie and Sunday 2 was the. I think it depends. I know for a while, there was Friday night and Saturday night. Although there was often stuff apart from the movie on Saturday night, but Sunday night movies was the big thing. I think they put less emphasis on Friday and Saturday night because it was regarded that adults did stuff apart from watch TV on Friday and Saturday. But yes. Oh yeah, that's right, Miss Fortification. The primetime movie was at 8:30, and the 10:30 movie was often like R-rated B grade shit. Yes, that is absolutely true. God, I remember that now. Yes, there would be a late movie that would probably be a bit raunchier and a bit cheesier and a bit down market compared to the 8:30 movie. Stuff like the release schedules for movies are weird. Sometimes we get a movie much later than the US or Europe, but sometimes they're released here first. Sometimes maybe only a couple of days earlier. Um, or sometimes it's months earlier because Australia's like a test market. But back in the day, this was another thing. It would take ages, 6 months to a year, for a big movie to even be released in Australia. We'd hear about it for ages, like what it was doing in Hollywood and whatnot, for 6 months to a year before it was released. Oh, wow. That chicken made a much louder noise than I thought it was going to. Um, yeah, and we were almost always a year behind in the American TV shows. It was very weird. Mrs. Angry's been playing Fallout 4. I think they're finished. And it is 10 o'clock, so I think I'll finish too. Um, go Betty buys. I'm working in the city tomorrow. I don't work in the city much these days. It's like being a contractor moving around. Usually my jobs are in the city, but sometimes I end up in the suburbs. And I'm in the suburbs, my current one, but I go to the city sometimes. I'm going to the city tomorrow. So I might go somewhere flash for lunch. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? The day rolls out ahead of me. Anything can happen. Look after yourselves, one and all. It was very nice seeing you all. Very nice hanging out with you. Um, I hope you all have a good time. I will of course be back on the tubes this week. Oh, if you haven't already seen it, I uploaded a video yesterday. It was very late last night. Very long, talky one with Aidsy talking about the whole Code Grey thing, finding out more secret stuff about Aidsy. I'll do another live stream. I'll probably have, besides any normal videos I do, probably have. There's a better than average chance I'll have Aidsy over again on the weekend. Another friend, Brian, we were going to talk about a group that is looking at ways to improve democracy, has some very interesting ideas. And hopefully have Eva back this weekend as well, maybe to do another podcast to talk, but do it live. So you might get a couple weekend videos and or live streams. Something to look forward to. But yes, enjoy yourself, one and all. Look after yourself. Stay safe. All those good things. Hope to see you again soon. But I will say bye for now.